All right, we've just wrestled with this idea of lifting restrictions. Where, when, and when does the East Coast come on board with that kind of concept? But let's jump ahead, jump one major step towards discussing how this country goes about crawling out of this hibernation and crawling out of these debt levels. How do we put people back to work, increase productivity, which we weren't doing pre-pandemic, and pay off this $320 billion in stimulus and wage subsidies? Well, it may be time for the PM to ask Bob the Builder. Bob Catter from North Queensland, the federal MP for Kennedy, joins me right now. G'day there, Bob.
Yeah, g'day everybody.
It's good to have you with us. Are you driving your wife up the wall yet? What's happening in the Catter household?
Fortunately, her accuracy when she throws things at me has declined over the years, and my speed hasn't, so I'm still alive.
How do you rate the way this National Cabinet has handled this crisis? Have they gone a few steps too far and overestimated the pandemic?
I asked for a meeting of my colleagues on the crossbench, and they very generously agreed to it. And they were of the opinion that the draconian measures that are in there are justified and needed.
Right.
Now, I'm not watching the media. I'm working like hell on trying to protect my homeland, North Queensland. There's 1 million people up here and we're contagion free. The only cases we've had is people allowing Southern Queenslanders to come into North Queensland. So the only cases we've had from those cruise ships, you allowed cruise ship people into North Queensland, and now you're allowing the South Queenslanders into North Queensland. And that's the only cases we've had. We don't have a pandemic up here.
Well, North Queensland needs to conduct its own borders and then block everyone else off, including fellow Queenslanders.
I think by the end of this week, there'll be over 200 doctors that have signed a document to that effect. Now, if the government continues to ignore all of the medical practitioners in North Queensland, then the government is extremely irresponsible. And all I can say is when we do get the pandemic up here, we know who to blame.
All right. We haven't heard about what's in the minds of the Prime Minister or the Treasurer about how we're going to pay back this $320 billion. We don't really have an idea about what needs to be done immediately after restrictions are lifted, but you've got a few ideas, have you?
I wrote a history book, and obviously the Great Depression was one of the great failures of the Australian people. We went through the Depression and built absolutely nothing. I mean, France, Britain, Germany, United States, Japan, they went on massive works programs, public works programs. And that was particularly true of the United States. They built the Tennessee Valley Authority projects, which produces more electricity free and forever than we produced in the whole of Australia at the time. That was through their hydro schemes. They built, widened and deepened the Mississippi River, so they had a 1,000-kilometre deep seaway right into the heart of America. They built the biggest dam built in the history of the world on the Colorado River, and they started off the agricultural production in California, which is now the biggest agricultural producing state on Earth, and it's the driest state on Earth. Its average rainfall is seven inches. They did all these wonderful things. We did nothing in Australia. Now we've got exactly the same situation now. You have a depression. Whatever you do now, you have a depression. And when you have a depression, everyone in the world that knows anything about economics knows you launch public works programs. Now the government has done the exact right thing, as did the Rudd-Swan government. When you've got a depression hitting you, you immediately put money in people's pockets and get them spending that money. But if you continue with that policy, you'll bankrupt the country. So you've got a 2 or 3 window of opportunity here, but then you've got to get the public works programs. Now you can either have make money projects or absorb money projects. Now football stadium, and I love rugby league. I live for rugby league. You build a football stadium that absorbs money forever, never makes money. You build a ring road around Brisbane, it might be terrific for people living in Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne, but it doesn't make you any money. You build a rail line into the Galilee coalfields, and you make $1 squillion a year out of it.
Not to mention
You
dams.
A power line to take electricity, livable electricity, to the mining areas in the Northwest Mineral Province. You'll get 100 mines to come on stream. But most of all, in the wettest area on Earth, North Queensland, if it's a separate country, would be the wettest country on Earth. But a wet only comes for 2 or 3 months of the year. Obviously, you hold a little bit of it back, send it into inland Australia, and you convert the whole nature of this country.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Will become productive.
I understand what you're saying. So you're talking dams, rail, big projects, get it started. But when it comes to infrastructure, we've got a bad track record of borrowing a whole heap of money, and it costs us a lot. Now that we've spent $320 billion, can we afford to spend more taxpayers' money on these big projects, or do we come up with better ways to raise and fund infrastructure?
No, you are left no alternative now but to go into public works programs. Not in the history of the world. Marcus Aurelius said, I realised that when I started major building programs, I overcame the Great Depression that our people suffered. He didn't mean in an economic sense, he meant in a psychological sense. But it was just as true with Marcus Aurelius as it was with Franklin Roosevelt in the Great Depression, as it is now in Australia. And when you say we've gone into $300 billion worth of debt, that is debt that you'll never earn any money out of. It's dead, it's gone. Forget about it, right? What we're asking for is the expenditure of 7,000 or 8,000 million, and we will give you back 30,000 million a year. We have shovel-ready projects. The rail line to Galilee, the Hell's Gate Dam, which starts off the Great Bradfield scheme, the Copper Stream power line, which will open up all those mines in inland Queensland. I could go on and talk about our silicon deposits, and we should be the world's biggest fertiliser producing country with the Ipai Canal. My blackfellow mates up there call it the Ipai, the Morning Light Canal.
You need to get into the
wonderful things, but if you don't do it, you're going to go broke.
Well,
if you don't do it, you're going to go broke.
You've got to get into the ear of both the Treasurer and the Prime Minister. I hope you're planning to do that in the next few months.
I'm from a business background. No disrespect to them, but they're not. And I have been in a government that created out of nothing the aluminium industry, the coal industry, and the great dams and agricultural development of Australia, along with snowy mountains. But it is there waiting. It's shovel ready.
Okay.
We're ready to go. We're contagion free.
All right.
Do it.
That's an impetus to start in North Queensland. I understand that. Independent federal MP for Kennedy, Bob Catter, thank you very much for your ideas.